Corvus, in the year 2024, for the second time in his career, is being a little bit slept on. He's actually an underrated champion these days, and that is blowing my mind. So we need to kind of talk about this because I agree with MSD's video title here that says 7-star Corvus is absolutely insane for incursions. Now, it's not just the video title. Let's go to a little clip of the video itself where MSD is using his rank 1 7-star champion here with some hacks, of course. Actually, let's talk very briefly about the hacks. He's using strategic movement and keep it going. So strategic movement is every time you dex or parry the opponent, you're gaining a 200% fury on your next attack, and those stack up. And then keep it going is that, every 10 hits in your attacker's combo meter, you inflict a massive armor break that also scales with attack rating. So these nodes work extremely well together. But let's go ahead and take a look at this video of, MSD fighting Kraven. And you can see he starts off hitting not that hard. I say not that hard, but these are also guaranteed crits for like 10 to 15k. But he also sets up so that he's got 9 hits on Kraven. So the very next hit is going to inflict an armor break. So now what MSD is doing is, building up poise charges, so to speak, where he's, dexed the opponent 6 times there. So now he's got 6 of these charges, and he's about to unleash. I paused it right before the fireworks because, well, do not blink. The actual hit that is inflicted is for 2,387,000. You can see this didn't take very much time at all. This is the time on the clock is still 7:30. Is that 7:36? So yeah, this fight. I mean, come on, it just barely started, and he's able to deal that much damage. But as some people pointed out, hey, this is the incursions, and any champ could do what MSD did with Corvus with these 2 hacks because they are that busted. And while I agree they are extremely busted, I think Kabam messed up with strategic movement specifically, making this way too overpowered. That said, it's been that way for a while, so I don't think it's going to get nerfed, at least not anytime soon. While I agree that a lot of champs are totally busted in the incursions, it's kind of the whole point of the mode, I am going to show on a little homemade, handmade, hand-drawn graph in just a moment as to why Corvus is different. He's not like every champ. The way that he scales is wildly different than most champs in this game. But first, I need to give a quick little backstory on Corvus. And if you're not interested in the story of Corvus here, I've got some time markers below. You could skip ahead. But I think it's pretty interesting to this guy's history and history with the contest in general. So, again, it's 2024. And when Corvus came out, it was 2018. Relatively early in 2018 at that. And the difference that 6 years makes for this game is massive, right? Not just for the game itself, but even for content creation in general. So right now, there's a content creator program that, hey, not every single person making videos is part of or even wants to be part of. But back then, the program didn't exist. Period. It was like loosely being formed, but there was no beta server. I think they had maybe just started calling it the content creator program, but it was nothing like it is today. What Kabam did was, because there was no beta server, they gave lower star level versions of champs to players on the live servers. And we're unable to give every single champ. And that has to do with Kabam's release cadence of champs at the time. You see, Kabam, they were releasing a new champ every 2 weeks with very few exceptions. And you might think like, oh, how's that different from today? Don't we get 2 champs every month? Yes, but there's not exactly 4 weeks in a month. There's 4 weeks and a little bit more outside of February, of course. There's 4 weeks plus a few days. And because of that, like I said, at this point, Kabam, they changed things. But at the time, since it was every 2 weeks, sometimes an update to the game would roll out. And hey, the new champion was available that day, or the next day that you can get from crystals, or they'd be in the arena. And there was no time for Kabam to give out a low star level version of a champ for players to test. So a lot of champs went, were not part of the content creator program, is what I'm trying to get at. And I can't recall exactly how it worked for Corvus. I'm fairly certain players were not given this champ. The only reason I don't remember for sure is because at the time I was organizing the first ever meetup that I had ever organized. And hey, man, I got a lot of social anxiety. I'm not the most social person, which might come as a surprise because you probably hear me talking a lot and rambling a lot on YouTube. But think about it. I'm alone in a room here. I'm basically a crazy person that just talks to myself all day, and I'm happy that you guys are part of the conversation over the internet, but it's a lot different from doing things in person. So especially at the time, I've grown a bit since then, but still at the time I was needing to change my underpants every other minute of the day, thinking about organizing a meetup. Anyway, back to the story here. With Corvus, came Proxima, and Proxima was a champ that players were able to test. And Proxima was kind of one of the most infamous releases of a champion, at least in terms of content creation, because you see, this was like I believe about a year or so after the 12.0 update. The 12.0 update nerfed a lot of champs, and one of them in particular was OG Thor. And OG Thor was capable of doing wild things. There's a video on the Invincible channel where a 4-star OG Thor was able to take down Winter Soldier in 9 hits. Think about that. Even in today's game, it's wild to see a 7-star at rank 3 take down a champ in 9 hits. So the fact that a 4-star was able to do it back then, it's no wonder the champ was nerfed, right? But anyway, so like about a year after that, Proxima hits the game, and Proxima is doing things that players hadn't seen since that time. Now, Proxima wasn't able to take down Winter Soldier in 9 hits, but with a little bit of ramping up with her system there, which was not very difficult to do in Realm of Legends, by the way, she was able to deal enough damage on a single hit to one-shot champs in there. And again, this is at like a 4-star level. Now, it turns out that it's not, even though it was easy to replicate in Realm of Legends, in more challenging content like Alliance War, pretty difficult. And Proxima ended up not being that practical of a champ to use in most areas of the game, which, of course, content creators got a lot of flack for that, even though, hey, it's not like we profited off of Kabam's crystal sales. It's just, we were genuinely excited because it was like, dude, we hadn't seen anything like this in a very long time. Anyway, it was definitely a mistake in hindsight, but still, it was just genuine excitement. Anyway, so Corvus was the other champ released that month, and Corvus looked very slept on at release because of all the hype for Proxima. And again, we weren't able to test Corvus. And think about the way that MCOC works. It is extremely difficult to get the newest, latest champ to hit the game. You have to spend lots of money or get extremely lucky, or maybe a little bit of both to get a new champ. That is the only option to get a champ on like day one. That's it. You can get a champ by grinding the arena, but even that takes a few days. But still, the champ comes out, and the initial reports are not that exciting, because if you walk into Realm of Legends with this champ, he doesn't hit very hard initially. Looks like a bit of a stinker, especially in comparison to Proxima, that you're able to one-shot these champs with at a 4-star level. But it didn't take very long for players to realize, oh, yeah, he's just not good in Realm of Legends. You just gotta, complete a couple of his missions, which isn't very difficult to do, and then Corvus is totally busted. And Corvus was so busted, in fact, that once a few months had passed and it was easier for players to get the champ, as it always is with the release of champs, a few months or even a year passes, and suddenly Corvus is everywhere. Everyone's using Corvus for Legends runs, for general questing. If you looked in Alliance Quest at your battle group, it would be very common to see at minimum 7 people out of 10 using Corvus, if not all 10 out of 10 at times. The dude was just everywhere. And the only reason that, Corvus, he kind of is taking a dirt nap, or was taking a dirt nap up until the 7-star release, is that Hercules came out. Corvus is the reason why Hercules is as busted as he is. Kabam had to do something, and because of all the flack that they got from the last round of nerfs, the major nerfs, at least with 12.0, there was some minor ones after that, but the last major nerfs that took place in 12.0, Kabam did not want to touch this dude, even though he was that overpowered. So instead, they just released an even more busted champ in Hercules, who kind of one-ups Corvus in most ways. It's not exactly an apples-to-apples comparison, because they are 2 different champs that do kind of different things, but they're close enough, and especially in class type and with their like Corvus has his glaive immortality. And then it's no coincidence. Oh, what did they give Hercules? Just straight up immortality that doesn't rely on glaive charges. Herc basically just took everything that Corvus could do +1. And suddenly now Hercules is the most OP champ, and Hercules ended Corvus's career, and people forgot about this champ. Cut to today, and now Corvus is released as a 7-star, albeit in a very expensive, way in terms of units. You could have grinded for him and stuff, or got lucky from the crystals, but still, not everyone's going to have this champ. And even still, even with a 7-star Corvus being available and a Hercules being confined to only a 6-star, I still don't think we're about to have that role reversal where suddenly Corvus is going to end Herc's career. I don't think it's going to work that way. But you cannot deny, or at least you could try, but I think you're crazy if you try to deny Corvus's power. Many other champs, many other very strong champs have been released, from 2018 till now, along with lots of champion buffs. So it's definitely not going to just be, returning to the Corvus show or anything like that, but the dude is very strong, and I'm singing his praises, but let me tell you, I'm not the biggest Corvus fan. I, in most cases, would rather play other champs. It's just that, hey man, I can't deny his power. This dude's gotten me Legends titles and all that. So, I'm gonna use him in order to do crazy things, like what is seen in MSD's video. Now, let's talk about why he scales differently, because again, so many people were like, oh, but this is just incursions. Aren't all champs crazy in incursions? Again, sort of, because that's the point of the mode, but at the same time, no. So let's talk about how Corvus scales differently compared to most champions. Now, there's a lot of things that go into the damage calculation. I'm going to focus on, crit and attack for right now, just to keep things simple, but yes, fully aware that, special damage or ways to increase it, like prowess, or ways to decrease the opponent's damage resistance, like armor breaks, or reducing, their physical or energy resistance, or anything like that, or just other damage over time effects. There's a lot that goes into the overall damage a champ is capable of dealing, and even the damage per second a champ can do, which is also inflated by things like controlling the opponent's power. That way you don't have to spend time baiting specials. So there's a lot that goes into it. For now, again, we're just going to keep it very simple with crit and attack. And the way that most champions scale is, they've got a decent amount of attack, right? Just imagine this is a champ's damage. And then that damage is also multiplied a bit by the champ's chance to crit and the damage that is dealt when the champion lands a critical hit. So because it's multiplied, you could think of the total damage that a champ is able to do by the area of this rectangle here. Okay, now the champion also scales, or many champions at least scale with things like fury buffs, and what that does is that just extends the amount of attack that a champion has. And sometimes it extends it, further than others, right? And that's one way that a champion's damage scales. Now, a little bit different to that is Corvus, who, the developers, they tried to make him balanced, but since he scales in a different way, it's kind of like this, right? This line is Corvus, but instead of, gaining all of the attack, what he does is, the area of these two rectangles is the same, right? But he scales through crit and crit damage, right? He has no furies in his base kit or anything like that. And then every time he gains one of his charges, he gains some more crit damage rating. And these boxes, they're not representative of the actual damage that's added, because there's also diminishing returns. So the more of them you have, the smaller they'll be added on top and stuff. But the point that I'm trying to make is that these champs, they scale in different ways. Again, a lot of champs, they scale more attack-based. Corvus, he's a crit-based scaling champ, okay? So, let's kind of now talk a little bit about the other node that is in this video. Let's get away from this for just a moment and go back to this video here where strategic movement comes into play. Now, for the purposes, I'm also going to ignore keep it going. We're just going to talk strategic movement for just a moment, okay? And strategic movement, what this does is it increases attack by 200%. All right. So coming back to my hand-drawn little graph here, let's do this. If this is the champion's base attack here and base damage, the area of this rectangle, well, a 100% fury looks like this. And now we have, the area of both of these for the total damage that a champ's doing on average. But this is only a 100%, fury. We need 200% for strategic movement, so it looks something like this. Now, just to put in perspective how crazy a 200% fury is, let's actually go and look at a champ that is based almost entirely around furies, Crossbones. Now, Crossbones, he does still scale with crit rate because that's how he gains the furies and stuff, and even crit damage rating, because, well, I'll show you in a minute, but his base attack is 6100, right? And then if we take a look, each one of his fury buffs, unless otherwise stated, is about 2750 plus 20% of Crossbones' crit damage multiplier. So his crit damage multiplier is about 650, but this is also, it gets inflated by masteries or, nodes or other hacks or whatever. So typically it's either right below 50% or sometimes a little above, but in extreme cases, much higher than 50%, but typically we can just say the average is about 50% of Crossbones' base attack, pure fury that he gets. So each one of Crossbones' furies, then that looks like this, except cut in half. So if it's 50%, right? As Crossbones' furies, they look like this. And well, you need about 4 fury buffs of Crossbones' to represent even one strategic movement buff that you can stack up basically infinitely in the incursions, right? That's how busted strategic movement is. But what does any of this have to do with with Corvus? Wasn't this supposed to be about Corvus? What is this bonus strategic movement thing that you're trying to show here? Well, it has to do with Corvus, because let's go ahead and take away some of this stuff. And I'm once again going to kind of paint a picture for Corvus, starting out looking like this, saying this is kind of how Corvus is balanced. Most champs, they have more of attack scaling, whereas Corvus, he's roughly balanced to deal the same amount of damage, except he scales it with crit, right? But this wasn't really exactly ideal. I mean, I did also say, yes, he extends this instead of furies. He extends it with more crit damage rating and stuff like that, right? But it doesn't exactly work this way. It was just a kind of a clean representation of it, and averaged out when Corvus does not have access to his glaive charges. But the thing is, Corvus Well, he doesn't always run out of his glaive charges. And what we can take a look at is, in actuality, Crossbones here, he's got an attack of, 60, 61, 27. He's a little bit below average in base attack, but really not that much below. And then if we take a look at Corvus, well, his attack is slightly higher, and once again, slightly below average, but not that much further below average. And I mean, if his base attack is the same, then well, this is not exactly true, right? His base attack, it matches. So really, the first line for Corvus here, it just looks like this, right? They have a very similar starting out attack. Now, if we look at the way that his crits work, well, most champions in this game, they've got a chance to crit, and then they have a crit damage multiplier. Now, I have two champs here, and the only reason I'm showing these two champs, they're going to be Hulk and Spider-Ham, is because this was also going to be part of my mastery video, and it still is. It's just that video is such a behemoth that it's going to take longer than I anticipated to release. But, Hulk, at a base crit chance, at a 7-star rank 3 level, going up against another 7-star rank 3, his base chance to crit is about 17.7, and once you give him 5 stacks of precision and 1 point the lesser precision, it's about 28%. Oh, that's including the stat focus as well. Sorry, his base crit chance is only about 14%. The stat focus bumps it to 17.7, and then base plus stat focus plus a mastery build that most people run bumps that up to 28%. And then his crit damage rating, with 5 points into cruelty, it inflates that to 203% damage when you land critical hits. And then we look at Spider-Ham by comparison, because Hulk, his crit chance and crit damage are fairly low, but Spider-Ham, without the stat focus, because I gave him a different stat focus for this example. Well, you'll see when I release the mastery video, but ultimately, with the base crit chance and 5 out of 5 precision, his crit chance is about 38.4%, with a crit damage multiplier of 257%. Well, the thing about Corvus is that he has guaranteed critical hits on everything except for his first light attack. I believe it's just the first light attack that doesn't crit. His crit multiplier at a 7-star rank 3 level, he can gain 4 charges, each one of them for 3,900, alongside of his base crit damage rating and masteries and all that. And I am going to round down to 16,000 rating here, which is a crit damage multiplier of 480%, with guaranteed crits on all attacks that would matter for the purposes of this example, because you could just purely do mediums if you want. So not only is the crit juggling all these different screens, not only is so his attack is roughly the same as other champs, and then not only is his crit chance significantly higher. If other champs have like a 1 in 3 chance to crit, this would be a lot higher, right? But then, once he builds up his glaive charges, those all add a lot more damage compared to other champs as well. And again, this is just an estimation of sorts. But because of this, like his damage while he has glaive charges, the area is more realistically like this. But then it gets a little crazier, because he still gains all of this with strategic movement, right? So all of this, it still multiplies as well. So like if the area represents the total damage the champ is dealing, hopefully this is making sense. Like, the way that Corvus scales is unlike any other champ in this game, for the most part. There are technically some other examples of champs that scale this way, like Ghost, but only when Ghost builds up her cruelties, which doesn't really happen in the same way. It takes a while to build those up. And yes, she has guaranteed crits, but only on like the first attack, coming out of her phase ability. So it's a lot different than Corvus just right out the gate. As soon as he's ramped up, at least, he's got all of these charges. He's got the guaranteed crits. There's no chance that if you have something like strategic movement that you're going to run out of glaive charges. So you're always going to deal this damage compared to what would normally just be, the average damage if, if balanced around as glaive charges. So you're always dealing the crazy amount of damage here. And that is why Corvus scales differently. In addition to this massive area sort of representing, Corvus's damage, it's a difference when things are consistent. Like, we all have played champs that have crazy damage but are inconsistent, like Gambit or Storm, where, hey, when they land a critical hit with all of the massive, prowess increase that they have going on, yeah, they hit really hard, but they're only hitting that hard like 1 out of 3 times. Like, what about the other times? So, because of the way that certain things in this game work, like strategic movement or plenty of other examples, being able to guarantee have that critical hit is so massive, especially when that guaranteed critical hit in the case of Corvus comes with true damage that bypasses armor and resistances and things like that, because even if we take away Corvus's damage here, this damage that I've kind of showed for just as an example of champs that have their attack increased, when they are not landing a critical hit, the damage is typically reduced by the opponent's armor by about 20 to 25%. But then in the case of someone like Doom, it's being reduced by about 50%. So all of this is like just gone, this damage does not exist. Or, and like with crit resistance coming into play, it's a far less than a 1 in 3 chance to land a critical hit against the opponent. So, like, oh man, it's such a huge difference. And the reason why, even though this is just an example drawing of like a representation of the damage and not getting into the absolute nitty gritty of all the numbers themselves, this is still a pretty good estimate of the way that Corvus works and why his damage is so explosive compared to other champs, because of the way that he scales with crit and attack. I hope some of this made sense. But again, that doesn't really address the issue of, hey, this is still just an incursion thing, isn't it? And aren't most champs this crazy in incursions? I already addressed why most champs are not that crazy in incursions. Even though they scale very well, they don't scale like this. But what about in areas outside of incursions? That's what I meant to say. Is Corvus still going to scale and perform anywhere remotely close outside of incursions? Yes and no. You see, in incursions, because the Furies there are so crazy from something like strategic movement, most other attack increasers, they almost become irrelevant, including Fury buffs from champs, including some of the other hacks that increase your Furies, outside of the ones that just like percentage increase the Furies, because you can add like 40% more on top of whatever strategic movements are already giving. But most other things become nearly irrelevant in terms of how much they boost your damage. Regular boosts, if they're just increasing your attack by like 30%, compared to the 200% that stacks with strategic movement, you almost don't notice it, right? However, once you step out of the incursions, it's the reason why Corvus scales better than almost every other champ in the game, if not every single other champ in the game, scales better than, with masteries like Liquid Courage and Double Edge, or just with other boosts with, like the boost that we have right now for Saga champs, because he is a Saga champ, or just other boosts in general. And you don't always have access to these things in something like Battlegrounds. Most players are not running recoil masteries, and certain metas definitely are, but in a lot of metas not really. And of course, these boosts are not active in those areas. The Saga boost is, but that's unique. These other boosts, they're not. But you can still boost up in other game modes, questing, Alliance War, all that good stuff. So in all of those areas, he is still going to be scaling in a different way compared to the rest of the field. And yeah, he's still going to be an absolute force in those areas of the game. So for all of those reasons, even though it sounds like I'm Corvus's #1 fan or anything or something like that, I'm not. But I still understand the way that he works. And if you really want to get into it, like breaking down the numbers, maybe that's better for some people. I went with a different approach because a lot of people don't like numbers so much at times. So I tried to break it down in a more visual way. And because I understand that, I am going to be ranking up my Corvus here. So let's get into that right now. Now, I would have much preferred to pull a 7-star version of this champ. For a few reasons. One, my 6-star was at rank 1 because by the time I got him, again, his career was kind of over. It had been ended by Hercules already at that point. And now I have to take him all the way from rank 1 to rank 5, and I have to, ascend this guy where I could be ranking and ascending other champs. So it's a little bit painful to do that, but at the end of the day, it's still well worth it. Oh my god, I'm missing a catalyst. Okay, hold on. And I sort of failed to mention when I started ranking up Corvus, but the reason why Corvus now, even though, Hercules still exists, and I didn't pull Corvus as a 7-star, is because, Corvus being a Saga champ, I want to use him for these Saga incursions that are active right now, where you need to use a Saga champ in order to qualify for certain rewards like these tokens for 7-star Nightcrawler and some other rewards in here as well. It's mostly the tokens for Nightcrawler, but it's also investing in this champ is going to get me more of these resources back in the end anyway. Actually, screw it. I'm just going to use a rank up gem. So yeah, it's a little painful to be using all of these resources where I would have much rather just had a 7-star that is going to last significantly longer than the 6-star will. But that's not the only reason. The other major reason why I wanted a 7-star compared to the 6-star is the stat focus that you gain. Now, some champs benefit more than others when it comes to stat focus, and I think Corvus actually benefits more than most when it comes to the stat focus as well. You see, Corvus, because he has his guaranteed crits, you don't need to do what I do with most of my champs. I don't need to give a crit rating stat focus. I don't need to give a crit damage rating stat focus because the diminishing returns, once you get to such crazy levels, it doesn't really, you don't really gain that much. Hold on, let me show one more time on Aunt May here. So this was the crit damage rating of a 7-star rank 3, right? But for a 6-star fully maxed out, it'll be closer to about 14,000, technically a little bit over, but we could just say 14,000, right? So watch the difference in numbers here. It goes from 480%, losing 2,000 rating, only changes that to basically 470. We'll round that up, 472%. So it's not really that big a difference. So you definitely don't want to, stat focus for crit damage rating. In my opinion, the two best stat focuses that you can have, or the recommended ones, I'm going to say, because, hey, best is going to vary situationally. But the ones that I'm going to recommend, if you were lucky enough to pull a 7-star Corvus, one, you could go more pure damage and go with something like the special damage boost. But what I would actually do is I would actually go with block proficiency, because there are some situations where with Corvus here, you only want to parry and then medium, light, medium. It's a way to conserve your charges the best way. Let me see. Do I just give this gem? Yeah, I suppose so. We'll give the rank up gem here. So there it is, man. Corvus rank 5 already. It's going so fast thanks to all the ISO from the event. Didn't get a Corvus, but I did get the ISO. So yeah, having the block proficiency allows you to reduce your damage when parrying more frequently to get those medium strikes in. And, just reducing damage in general when you already hit so hard. The benefits that you gain, just from having that extra block proficiency, which his is already okay. It's not bad. Corvus, he's got a little bit of tankiness to him. I think people forget that about Corvus at times. You see, his damage is so flashy, and I'll show I'll just show it right now. His damage is so flashy that a lot of people, the only survivability that they really know about Corvus is his glaive immortality. That's what people remember, at least, being able to survive at 1 health as long as you have some glaives, right? But he's tanky for some other reasons. He's got some other pseudo immunities here. As long as he's got the glaives, then he's not taking damage from cold snap, bleed, shock, frostbite, all that stuff. He doesn't take damage from it. But even just looking at his base stats, he actually has some crit resistance built in. He's got it's about 5%. It shows a little bit higher on this screen because it shows a challenger rating against 4 stars. But yeah, you could always just think of it as about 5% crit resistance too. So he even has that going for him. So yeah, he's actually decently tanky for a champ that many would consider to be more glass cannon in style. But yeah, this champ is just OP. It's like I said, there's a reason why Hercules is as busted as he is, and it's because they had to replace Corvus. They had to get people away from this guy. So let's go ahead and ascend Corvus. And this is the finishing touches on him. I'm not going to Sig him up. Sig 1 is good enough for this guy. As I always say, Sig 1 and done. So where you at, my boy? Corvus. There he is, dude. So yeah, he's got 6,300 health as well, which is really nice. So the other thing that I wanted to very quickly talk about is, should you actually rank this guy? Because for some people, they know that Corvus is very strong, but the debate lies a little bit more in should you actually rank Corvus or not? So again, going back to this video where MSD was using a rank 1 7-star Corvus. Corvus, he can still work at rank 1. We see it here, right? But there are other interactions where, yeah, I don't know, just to play it safer or just to be even faster, to not have to build up as many charges, to not be as reliant on the 10th hit armor break of the other hack that you're getting, and to use this guy in more areas of the game. I personally would recommend ranking him up, because you could either be like, okay, I'm not going to dance with the opponent as much, and I'm just going to hit him right now and knock him out, or you will have to build up more of these charges. The average champ is going to have to build up way more than 6. The fact that Corvus is able to do it in 6 and deal this much damage is still very insane. But again, this damage, if we look at the numbers on Aunt May for Corvus here, 7-star rank 1, is under 4,000 attack, right? 7-star rank 3 is above 6,000 attack, so it's an over 50% base attack increase, which means that the Fury buffs, because they're percentage based, they're all 50% stronger as well, or more than 50% stronger. So this one attack, yeah, this would have been well over 3 million damage instead. Or like I said, you just spend less time dancing around with the opponent. There's lower risk involved, right? If the fights are going to be that much shorter. And then again, you could also utilize the champ in other areas of the game. So I totally do think that he's worth rank 3ing for a lot of people. That said, if you don't, I'm going to let this play out a little bit, because this was one of the larger hits, by the way, just for full disclosure. There are other, fights. I'm actually just going to go back to like the start of the video here. There are other fights where, and shout out to MSD for this video, by the way. If you haven't subscribed to his channel already, you're totally missing out. But anyway, there'll be a link to this in the description if you want to see the full thing in its entirety. But anyway, so that was only 2 Furies right there, and you could see how much damage that dealt. It's totally crazy. But anyway, some players will opt to keep him at a lower rank, and that's fine if you want to do that. But I think because we're probably roughly halfway through 7-star rank 3 being the highest rank, give it another 6 to 8 months, and we'll probably see like the first rank 4 7-stars. I would guess. Could be wrong on that, because Kabam doesn't want to race too much further to or too much faster to 8-star champs, right? So maybe it's going to take longer than that, but the bottom line is we're already starting to see rank 3s come online a little bit faster. So if this was like players, if this was like November, when Necropolis came out and Corvus was available, I would have said no, don't take him to rank 3, leave him at rank 2 for now. That'll be fine, because resources are that rare. But the fact that Kabam is rolling them out a little bit, faster these days, personally, I'm totally comfortable in if I would have gotten this guy as a 7-star to take him to rank 3, and I'm going to recommend that to other people too. Because he's going to be useful for not just the Saga incursions, but all incursions going forward. And you are going to run into situations where he's still going to get shut down by things like Safeguard, but the sheer speed and just usefulness of this champ, it's not really going away entirely just because other good champs exist as well. I think this dude is a beast, and that's why I just took him to rank 5 and ascended him. Oh, and one last note super quickly, I also think that health is very underrated when it comes to ranking up certain champs. If a champ is known for their explosive damage, then yeah, we tend to focus on that damage. But still, again, looking at Aunt May here, 7-star rank 1, the base health is below 50,000. And if you get the champ to, rank 2, that goes up nicely. But even rank 3, that goes up. It's over a 50% increase from rank 1 to rank 3. And yeah, I mean, you could argue, hey, just don't get hit and then everything's fine. But it doesn't really work that way. In addition to the base health scaling, healing also scales in the incursions when you get those 40% healing nodes, or because Corvus has so much in the way of immunities, or like these pseudo immunities, as long as he has his glaive charges active. It also means that whenever he's suffering from any of these debuffs, his willpower is now increased by 50% compared to what it was at rank 1. And that's the only reason that I would recommend running recoils with this champ still. Or, I mean, it depends. It's still, you can kind of go either way in the incursions. Elsewhere in the game, 100% you want to run recoils with this guy if you have them available. But in the incursions, you're already dealing with such inflated attack values that you don't see a ton of benefit there. It's more to do with, hey, if you're not taking any damage from the bleed at the start of the fight, Well, you kind of do heal up a little bit at the start of the fight as they go on. So it might still be worth running. But yeah, just the fact that you're gaining 50% additional health and the increased, 50% healing from certain sources as a result. Yeah, dude. For a no for or a mode, sorry, a mode that is as expensive as the incursions. Give me every advantage I can get. I don't want my runs to end. I want to get through there using as few items as humanly possible. Okay, thank you for listening to and watching this quite long video about Corvus. And hearing out my reasoning as to why I think he is still a powerhouse champion and is kind of being given new life, being released as a 7-star, where his replacement, Hercules, is still just a 6-star. All right, that'll do it for this video. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.